Welcome to Just an Average Citizen, the podcast that helps to educate, inform, and empower you to make an impact in the Abilene and the Big Country. Welcome back to this new year, first podcast of the year. I'm excited to start informing and educating you of all the things that are going on in the city. There's a lot to talk about. I think I'm going to have to try and be focused. There's some things that I missed over the holidays. There's some things that I think were really important that stood out, and it's something you'll have to kind of go back and pay attention if you get to the place that you can do that. But if you are a follower and have been listening to me for a while, I so appreciate it. I can't do this without you because we've got to get the word out on what's going on in our community, and it takes individuals to do that. It's not going to come through a podcast. It's not going to come through a social media post. It's going to be us talking to our friends and neighbors. So if you're already here and jumped on the bandwagon and wanting to know how to be just an average citizen, because our definition of average has been way off for a long time. So we need to redefine it, reestablish it. And right now we have to be more than average so that we can get some things done. But I would love it if you'd share this podcast with your friends and family, and make sure you subscribe to whatever platform you want to, so that I can continue to build and create an audience of people who are ready to take back our government and really restore it to be we the people. We've lost the ability to do that in the past, and let's fix it so we can do it in the future. So a lot of things to cover this week on this podcast. I've learned that I say a lot. Oh my gosh, that's so annoying to me. I was making a video, and when I think I say so I'm laughing because it drives me absolutely bonkers now, since I've been trying to be do a better job at public speaking. So forgive me if you hear me thinking. I'm going to try and let the silences allow me to think, to move on to the next thing rather than these little filler words. That's probably more than you wanted to know, but hey, I'm an average person. I'm learning how to be a public speaker. In fact, let me go off on a tangent here. It was cute. A realtor got up and wanted to support something that was going on in our community. And I was so proud of her for showing up and sharing her thoughts and opinions. And she was like, I'm not a public speaker. And I was like, none of us are, honey. None of us are. And it is so nerve-wracking getting up in that little podium at city council and speaking if you are trying to say something that you know may not be received well, or you're just not used to it. So we can all improve and get better at that. But even after all that I've been doing, I laugh. I'll show my friends when I'm sitting down. I'll show my hand, and it's still shaking, even though it's just, it's kind of like when you're doing rope walks, or those, when you get on rappelling and things like that, your body's saying danger, danger, but your brain's like, it's fine. Or it's not dangerous, but your body's like reacting in a dangerous way. So just know that even average people still get nervous going up to the dais. It's completely, or the dais, however you want to say it, it's perfectly normal and average. So I want to start off here with my first slide. Elections matter. This is my vision, my motto of what I'm going to be working on, because as an average citizen, if we do not understand that elections matter, we're not going to fix anything. We're just we're just plugging up holes in a sinking ship. Because if we do not get elected officials who understand their role, who understand that they represent what the community wants, who they represent the whole community, not just segments, we're going to elect people. Right now, we're electing people who have a role to play, but it's not one that benefits the whole community always. I don't think anyone's up there for malicious or evil intent, but I think the system is broken right now. And until we start electing people who understand how the system is broken and how we fix it, then we're going to kind of be stuck with the same results. I mean, for example, I know a lot of men of faith who are sitting on the council right now, but it's like as soon as they walk in the door, their faith doesn't seem to influence or direct, not just on city council, but on other elected positions. It doesn't affect and influence how they see the role of government in our community, and that the rights that we have as citizens actually come from God, because that's who gives us our rights. We don't need human rights. We just have the things that God gives us, like we are allowed to live. There are lots of things that God gives us, and that's where all of our Bill of Rights comes from, is from understanding that God gave us those abilities. So we're not going to have the right to health care or the right to, a house to live in. Those are not rights given by God. Those are things that we would like to have, and that there's opportunities to afford that in our community. But you have to understand how that flow goes. So rights come from God. And if we understand that, then we understand how our laws should reflect that, and that it is completely fine to govern and sit in an elected seat as a Christian and be a person of influence in that way. And so we don't have to force everyone to be Christian, and not everyone has to be a Christian who runs, but I'm just saying it is not inappropriate for us to bring who we are to the council meetings or the board meetings or wherever we're called to serve or we volunteer to serve. So that's a little side note, got off track there a little bit, but we're going to get back because elections matter. And if we don't understand, this is how our laws are enforced. This is how laws are written. We call them ordinances at the local level. There are laws at the state level. There, I said, again, I'm going to be annoying you probably with that. I'll stop. So let me move on to the next thing. But we have a primary coming up March 3rd, which is huge. There's a Taylor County Republican Party is holding a forum on January 22nd for the state representative seats for HD 71. And then on February 3rd, they're hosting a congressional forum, which I'm really excited about. Those are both huge. The state one probably affects us more directly. Congress is a little bit of a different battle right now, but it's important who we put in office. And since both Lambert and Arrington have retired, we have open seats, and there's quite a few there's quite a few candidates. And I think there's some really viable options to vote for. So we want to make sure you show up. You can introduce yourself so you can start being connected with the elected officials who are going to be representing us in the different levels. So that's February 3rd. And so elections matter. And then, of course, we have city elections, school board elections coming up in May. And so that's important. We got to keep the momentum going and see who we can get in office that will actually represent us well and do the things that we need to do as a community. One of those things is transparency. We need to have information. And I was thinking of the order. I always get it backwards, the order I say I want to educate, inform, and empower you. I want to educate you first so that you know how to be informed, so that you are empowered to be a voice of change and a voice of reason speaking into the community. It's really fun when you start seeing the effects of what you're doing and how it changes, and they're never going to pat you on the back and say, well, it was because of you and what you said that I'm doing this. No, they just change it. Like, for example, the tea. The city puts out a tea now. Thankfully, I believe, because I have asked and shown what it looks like to be better at communicating and being transparent about what happens at city council meetings. So elections matter. If you don't show up and vote, then you really have lost a seat at the table to see how you can get the representation you want. And you can say, hey, my voice doesn't matter. Well, as long as you believe that, guess what? It won't. But if you show up and start knowing who's running, electing those people, and I've gotten to interact with a lot of the regular voters in town, and they're so informed, and it's so fun because they know when things are coming up. They know how to pay attention, and they have some perks and privileges that those of us who have taken a little bit longer to get into this game, they have. So we've got to make sure we're paying attention. All right, let me move to the next thing. Woo, exciting. All right. So, I've tried to do Citizens Made Easy, just an average citizen made easy on Tuesday nights before council. And I'm always trying to use the most effective approach to the time that I spend investing in this because, I do this just as a benefit to those who want to know. I mean, this is not a paying gig. I'm doing this because I think it's that important and trusting God to provide for the other parts that I need. But this is something that I do because it matters. And where I got this foundation to start this process was with biblical citizenship. At the time, it was called A Constitution Alive. They've come up with a newer one. And so what I'm going to be offering is teaching and facilitating basically a biblical citizenship class on Tuesdays from 6:30 to 8:30 at Post at Resonate Church. So if you are a citizen who wants to ask a question about what the city council meetings are saying, or what's going on, or you have a concern, or you don't know how to approach something, know that I'm still available. You can show up at 6 and I'll be there from 6 to 6:30. The class will probably be over about 8:30, or you can come at 8:30 and hang out, come and talk to me about what you need. So it's not as convenient for you, but it's more efficient for me because we still got to keep getting people to understand what it means to be a citizen and to know what our rights are and what the Constitution was established, that we're a republic, not a democracy, and why that matters, and why separation of church and state is something that started in the late 1800s. Was it the late 1800s? No, 1900s. I get confused. The 1900s. Sorry, I shouldn't have spoke off the cuff on that. There were some judicial activists that kind of brought that back into play after 150 years of it not being an issue or a part of the conversation at all. Or like, which branch? Do we have 3 equal branches of government? No, we don't. we have different levels that have more power. And that's part of why we're not seeing a lot of progress in Washington, because the legislators forgot what their job is. So if you need more information, go check out Just an Average Citizen at Facebook. I've got this posted on Instagram, and you can just message me here, even on the YouTube or whatever platform you're on. I'm sorry we put it on YouTube. I've been doing a lot of stuff on YouTube, but feel free to ask questions and invite a friend. You can register. That'll ensure that I have a seat for you. It's free. There is a book that you can purchase, but it's not required. So let's move to this. One of the things I've been talking about, what's funny is when I share things with people, I'm not sharing things like, oh, woe is me. And I don't see people responding that way, but I just want you to know I'm sharing things to encourage you. So I recently shared this on my personal social media post. I found this quote and I thought it was really important, because it takes nothing to join the crowd. It takes everything to stand alone. So if you're in a room full of people who are like, we agree, and they're like, you're the only one, look, get on board or you're a loser. I never say that directly, but what I want you to know is those who have learned to stand alone understand the value of what we believe, and we stand for it, and we don't need others to agree with us in order to have that foundation to stand. And so it's funny how there's just been this belief that if there's a lot of people speaking out, then that means a lot of the people agree with the group that's speaking out. And if there's only one or two people speaking out, then that means they're in minority and no one agrees with them, and they're kind of wasting their time. But what I saw in this picture was one red person amongst a bunch of gray. But the problem is when you stand alone is that you don't see all the people standing with you, because it is hard to stand for what you believe regardless of what the room says. It's easy to stand up when everyone's cheering you and clapping you on like you're doing something noble, making a public comment. That's not noble. That's the average part of being a citizen. And if you get patted on the back just for saying something in a minute, then kudos to you, because you've got a low level. Well, not kudos to you. It's sad that that's what you think is an accomplishment, because actually making a difference and changing policy and being an influence in how things are established and how they run is really what is required. It's not just to say something, it's to do something. So a lot of people love saying things, but don't do it. So let's start being more of a doer and less of a sayer. And again, I don't expect social media to be the place where a lot of people who agree with me to be like, yeah, that's it, because that's not what we do. We don't just celebrate things online. We actually go and make a difference. And I get to talk to a lot of you who are trying to make a difference. And I get to talk to a lot of you who would agree, but social media is just one aspect of our world. It is not the definer of what matters in life, right? It's all about algorithms and all those good things. And here I am wrapping it. Okay, so let me go quickly through this so I can get to the other part. Sorry. So we're going to go to City of Abilene. And I just wanted to let you know that I checked the website and I don't see anything about it. I looked on the newest news. There's no news. I don't see any links that would tell me what I want to know. So I'm just letting you know that's there. That's what it is. Okay, because at the last meeting, there was an item 16 that was after the executive session, and it just had very little information. And I listened to the presentation, and afterwards I stood up and I said, great presentation, good information, but why couldn't you let the citizens have access to this through digital slides so they can look at it and read the information? Or why couldn't we have at least included? So here's the actual resolution right here in that I took from the city agenda. It just says approving infrastructure agreement with Abilene DC 9 LLC, Abilene DC 10 LLC. Well, you don't even know what that is. So if you're trying to pay attention to the agenda, you're like, I don't even know what that is. Well, it's about the Lancium Phase 2, okay? Lancium Phase 2. Why would they not put that on the resolution? Why would they not include it? That's the transparency I'm asking for. I'm not asking for them to show me trade secrets or expose things that are not supposed to be exposed by law. I'm just saying be a decent human being and put the fact that it's a Lancium project. Now, I've made it clear to the city staff that I'm not saying, when I talk about this stuff, I'm not criticizing the city staff. That is not my job as a citizen. They answer to the mayor and they answer to the city council. I'm saying, hey, city council, you should be affecting policy that makes sure that when we do stuff, it's communicated clearly to the public. And that's what this is. This is me saying, hey, policy people, you're the ones in charge of this. Make sure it happens, because if they wanted this to be on the agenda this way, the city staff would do what the council and mayor are asking them to do. And so, when I when I talked about last year while I was campaigning for city council, I said, let's have transparency. And the guy that I was running against said, we already have it. Go look on the website. And I'm like, yeah, it's not there. It's not there. And it's not because the city staff are failing to do their jobs. In my opinion, the policymakers, which is the city council and the mayor, need to be doing more to having an influence and impact on what we have access to as citizens. Because if I ask, hey, why don't you put this on the website or create a space where this is available? Guess what happens? Councilman Craver, after I sat down, after the presentation, after they had every chance to say what they were going to be doing for the citizens to help them understand what's going on, he said, oh, we're going to be putting on the website. We're going to be sharing this with the citizens. So I've looked, it's still not there. So it doesn't seem like that was a plan in place prior to the meeting, because that would have seemed to be the best thing. Hey, listen, even if they wanted to wait till after the meeting, I'm good with that, but at least have a place where people can be connected to the information. And again, that's how you affect change, because prior to that, I would have said that and nobody would have said anything. But now they're like, oh, yes, we're already getting on that. So good. Glad, Councilman Craver. I look forward to seeing that posted on the website afterward, because he knows and he stated that I like to educate and inform you. And he recognizes that that's something that citizens value. So let's see what's going to happen. I only put the first two on here. So unfortunately, this is on my Facebook page and my Instagram page. So if you're not on those social media platforms, I'm sorry. It's kind of hard to share these things that are not videos on the other platforms. But I just want to show you the first two. I've labeled them. This is like, well, we have enough water. They address that. They say that this is very little water use. And again, this is what they're presenting. I have not enough information to make any other judgments about this. I'm just sharing what they have told us they're doing. And I'm giving that information to you so you can read it and go, okay. And part of why I want to say that is good, because when you pay attention to what they say, you learn a lot. And so because I've been paying attention, I knew exactly what DC 9 and DC 10 were. That's because I've been watching the agenda. That's because I've been paying attention. So this is where I'm trying to help educate you on how to be informed. I was meeting with a group on Sunday and I said, the 3 things you need to know is know where to get information, make it a part of your regular schedule to check for the information, and then make sure you're talking to people about it. So while I am doing this on a mass generalized platform right now, I actually talk to people about it in my day-to-day life. Have you heard about the Lancium stuff? Do you know about phase 2? Like, did you watch the meeting? Like, you can ask so many simple questions that don't have to have you don't have to have a lot of information. You don't have a lot of knowledge, but you're just creating capacity for people to start to go, hey, I haven't paid attention. How do you know? Where do you find out? What do you look for? Because that's how we equip and arm citizens who are engaged and involved. And that's how we create that average citizen bar that's higher than what it is now. All right, the last thing I'm going to touch on is this was a gift given to me on a platter. And I love it that the heart of it was to shame and embarrass people like me. And so when you know the law and when you've understood what we're going after, you're not being emotional, you're not being irrational, you don't have to worry about the distractions that are brought up or the statements made out of ignorance are said, because that's not the point. They can talk about their shallow end stuff all they want to, but we're dealing with the deep end. We're dealing with policy, we're dealing with law, we're dealing with real lives and how they affect people. And so I was at a meeting recently where the room was packed. It wasn't packed, but it was pretty full. It was probably 75% full. And during a public comment, one of the citizens who spoke made it a point to talk about stakeholderism. So but we're going to pause here, because I've talked about this before and I've talked it at City Council. If you want to hear my comment on this, go to the October 9th meeting. I believe that's what it is, during the public comment section. I might even just record it and share it again. I haven't been sharing my public comments as much. I might have already shared it, actually. I'll have to check. I didn't double check that. But I made this public comment. I've already talked about this. So this is what's fun, is we're already dealing with this. We're already addressing it. It's an issue in the state. It's an issue in the local. They use this word stakeholder. Okay. And I'm just showing you a general definition. I'm not going into great depth. I just wanted to quickly show you that, look here, stakeholder is a person with interest or concern in something, especially a business. But what they're using is stakeholders in general. So, for example, at this meeting, the person said, hey, if you are a stakeholder or if you have met these criteria, raise your hand. Okay. And I would dare say probably 90% of the room raised their hand. And the speaker, in all genuine confidence, said, look, look how these few people in the room, the 10%, they're not stakeholders. They don't matter. And why do they have a say in this in this situation? And I just I had to not laugh out loud. I mean, I wasn't able to sit on camera, which is fine. I only sit on camera just so people know I'm there and I'm paying attention. I really don't like being on camera. One would maybe not think that, but I just want people to know that I'm still there. I'm paying attention, and that's the only reason why I do it. But so I'm glad, because I almost laughed out loud. I was like, this is brilliant, because this is what happens when you redefine or reestablish that the only people that matter are these stakeholders, then guess what? You get exclusion. You get people who are not stakeholders. Who defines what's a stakeholder? Not you or I. It's the people in charge, the people running the show. And so when they talk about the stakeholders of downtown, they're really not talking about the citizens. They're talking about the businesses. They're talking about the city. They're talking about all these different entities, but the citizen is not typically included in that conversation. Now, they would deny that, and that's fine. But the problem is stakeholders are not what a free enterprise is. We are a free enterprise capitalistic system. We're dealing with Marxists trying to spout out the negativity and the destructive nature of capitalism. But I dare you find any other nation in the world that operates on any other kind of thing, that is any other kind of economic system that is thriving, right? Free enterprise means that we have choice. So again, I'm sorry, I'm conflating things. Business is different. Free enterprise, I went down the wrong rabbit hole. Our government is a constitutional republic, which includes a representative. We have representation, right? We're not a democracy because we're not majority rules. It's not the majority gets to rule. We get to elect. Minority has a say. We do have a place where we get to speak, which is why in that room of 90% of people who consider themselves stakeholders, I was one of the 10% that wasn't a stakeholder. But guess what? In a constitutional republic, I still had a say, and I had a right to be there. And the law says that I have a right to do the things that I've been doing. Unfortunately, the 90% in that room did not understand that. And that's not my problem. And that's why I could sit back and laugh, because I'm thinking, stakeholders not. So we've got a lot of things we've got to fix. And that's why we have to be more than average citizens, because all these bad ideologies and economic theories and things have crept in, and they sound good. And I want to have a stake in this, but that's not how our government is set up. I have a right to say a public comment just like you do. And as another area of disagreement or shaming is, if you don't own property, if you're not a homeowner, then you don't have a right to speak, or you shouldn't be heard. That's not true. Any person who lives in a certain area has a right to speak and address things, depending on whether it's the city, the school district, the state, or the nation. We have rights as citizens. And when you start talking about stakeholders, you diminish those rights, and we've got to change the language. But changing the language in conversation isn't really going to do much good, because it's embedded in our state legislature. It's embedded in our city. Our city adopts state legislator. I don't know national if I've looked up that yet, to be honest, but it's a prevalent thing that's a problem. We've got to restore back to the citizens have a say, not just the businesses. Now, the business owners are citizens, but they shouldn't be stakeholders, because the only people who typically have, stakes are people who are put in that position, not people. It's a selective game. It's kind of like pick the teams. You can pick somebody to be your stakeholder, and you can exclude someone to be your stakeholder. And again, shareholder is what the capitalist system does, which you have a share, you've purchased a buy-in to that company, then you have a say. Citizens is governmental. Stakeholders, it is just bad news. And so I enjoyed that. I like it when I get to say, oh, wow, look what I know. Look how far I've come. Look what I've learned. And this is all when less than 5 years ago, I had no clue. I'd never read the Constitution in my adult life. I was sitting on the couch going, hey, I know what's going on. I'm watching the news. Hey, I know what's going on. I vote from time to time. Nope, that's not it. We've got to do more. And so I hope this has been enlightening. I just want to let you know that we don't always have to, point out everything every time something happens, because there's some other things that are fun that are going on. I've seen so much progress, and I see movement, and I want you to know that when we stand alone, like in this picture, we're still making progress. One person can still have an impact. And I could list several things that I know that I've had influence and made an impact on that no one will ever know about. And that's not the goal. The goal is not for people to celebrate me. The goal is for us to restore our liberties and freedom. And we first and foremost know that those come from God. And if we don't understand God as the source of our liberty, then it doesn't matter what we do in elected office, because they're going to continue to use measuring sticks that don't give us our full potential for liberty. And that's what's beautiful about our nation, is it set it up on that standard, and that's what we operate from. And I want to build confidence, encouraging you to know that just because you're not well versed on social media to pop off a comment doesn't mean you don't stand for things. And there's a time to stand. And I'm learning that I am created and called to do something that a lot of people aren't doing, because I'm building courage in you so that when God calls you to stand for the thing that he's going to call you to stand, you're very equipped to do it, right? Like, you are created in his image and you're equipped to do the things he's called you to do. So let's be encouraged. Let's know that we're standing strong on the things that matter in our city, and we're going to learn how to do it better. And as we start to do those three things, we know how to find information, where some sources are to find those good information, whether it's the city website, whether it's me, whether it's a friend, whatever, who knows what's going on. And then you start to look regularly in those places so you can continue to stay updated and know what's going on. And then you talk about it. We're going to make an impact, and we're doing good things. So be excited. Know that it's hard to celebrate right now because we're not seeing these victories in ways that we wish, but it's not about one victory. It's about getting back and restoring our community back to what we want it to be, so that our values are all aligned and that elected representatives actually represent those values, not just some ideology that they're chasing after because it seems trendy or important at the time. So thanks for listening. Again, remember to share this with your family and friends, and give a subscribe, because that helps, I'm sure, improve the algorithm so people see it more and more. I'm starting to see an increase in people paying attention, and that excites me. Again, you don't have to love everything I say. You don't have to agree with me, but if you're paying attention, then we're on the same page. That's what we need, is more people paying attention. So thanks for joining me. I hope you feel a little more educated, a little more informed, and a little more empowered to make an impact in Abilene and the Big Country. Until next time.